Let's talk about Displacer now, which is found here under this deformers menu. So let's load it, and the initial idea for this deformer is really to have an ability to show live displacements in the viewport as opposed to displacements made in the displacement channel of material. So deformations will be seen in the viewport, not on the render. So it's really a live effect. Since this guy can be really used in multiple ways, so for example you can maybe create a displacement map in your sculpting application and simply load it on your object live through this displacer, but we will focus on what it can do as a part of a MoGraph. So let's actually create a MoGraph text like this, and we will type here Displacer. I will align this guy into middle so it's right in the center of our scene. Maybe I will change the font to say maybe let's try this cartoony type of font, and let's also load a material for this guy. So let's try something simple like maybe gradient, and I will load some colors here, maybe this one, and on the other hand let's go with this one. So something like this. We can even utilize this turbulence, it will create some sort of a randomness, and apply it to our guy. Maybe I will just invert this so I get this color up front, and now I will subordinate this displacer as a child of Vertex, so it's really like any other deformer. You will see that it really shares some settings with the shader effector, so you can load any shader to displace the geometry of anything that it affects. So it can affect a parametric object, it can affect splines, it can affect polygon objects naturally. One important thing for you to understand is if you want to displace something successfully, meaning with lots of detail, you have to have that detail in the object you are displacing. So this mode text, and you can see currently it really doesn't have a lot of information, especially in these front faces. So if you will be displacing it here, this guy will really not have anything to work with. So let's subdivide these guys a little bit. In fact, this part is pretty solid, so we can leave it like that. Maybe just add one subdivision like this, maybe even a bit more, so it has a denser geometry. And here under caps, I will enable these quad options and turn on regular grid, because I want to have pretty much equal polygon sizes on this guy. And let's tune this down to, let's say, maybe even 3. This would be good enough. So now we basically gave these guys enough geometry, so whatever we will load here under shading tab, it will pretty much work, since the object is dense enough. So let's load a material here, and I will go with noise, and the effect is really obvious immediately. Let's choose maybe a different type of noise. So let's try with maybe this over, and let's maybe try this piezo, and yes, this works a little bit better. So here in the object tab, you can choose how the displacer will displace this geometry according to this type. So currently it's set to intensity, and I'm sure that ones of you that watched volume 2 understand these settings, and currently it's really working from a central value of these guys. So it's really going in negative direction, so to speak. So if you want to create displacements from original geometry outwards only, then you have to go with this intensity settings. I hope that makes sense. And I will increase this to maybe 20. Let's even go to 50. So you can clearly see the effect, how it displaced these letters. And of course, it has a fall off, so you can really have fun with this one. Let's try spherical. So now the effect will be constrained only to this fall off. You can imagine that you could do some really neat stuff with this. So for example, letters are frozen or stuff like that. So multiple applications of this displacer. Let me show you another example with displacer, and I will get rid of all this and create a completely new scene from the scratch. And I believe that creating scenes from scratch can really help you, as opposed to show you something with a half finished or prepared scene. So let's create a simple spline, and in fact I think that I will rather convert one of these plane objects and select a edge here and simply do a edge to spline command. So it's much more simpler than enabling snapping and stuff like that. So we can now utilize this guy, and we even have enough subdivisions for what I'm about to show you. So let's sweep this spline, and I will create a circular profile, and also I will create a sweep NURBS, subordinate both guys, simply scale this down to maybe something like this, and let's create an appropriate material. And once I create that material, I think that many things will become a little bit more clear, and let's in fact create that color in luminance channel. I'm not sure why Cinema opens this color picker outside of the recording area, but that's how it is. So let's maybe try with really violet color like this, and apply it to our sweep NURBS. Now I will add a displacer to this spline, so I will select it here in the object manager, and while I'm holding my shift key down, I will select this displacer, and now that displacer will become a child of this spline. So basically what I'm going for here is some sort of electrical effect. So let's load a noise shader, because I'm pretty sure there is a noise type here that is really suitable for this, and you can already see this guy deforming. And let's in fact increase the height of the deformation. Let's go with something like this, and here I will load that electric noise, so it's really appropriate. And let's have a look at the settings. If I press play like this, nothing will happen, so it won't oscillate until I enter something here in this animation speed. So I really want this to be really fast, so let's try something with like 20, even a bit faster, maybe 50. That would be much better. So also what I can notice that this spline is oriented in Z direction, so I would rather rotate it like this by 90 degrees. So now it's really oriented as I want. So if I press play, there I have an electrical energy beam effect or something like that. So for example, you could use this to create radio waves or stuff like that. So really useful. Of course, you can add a fall off. So let's add maybe a cone fall off, and everything inside the cone, can even hide it, so we only see this line. Everything inside the cone will be deforming. So multiple applications of this displacer. Very cool, very handy, and very powerful. all in all, one very useful deformer with many practical applications. So let's get rid of all this, and I want to show you this Splinewrap guy, which you can find here, and this is actually a part of MoGraph, so it came with the release 9.6 if I remember correctly. And what it does, it really deforms the object on the spline and will really offer you lots of additional options to modify that object to great extent. So let's first create some arbitrary spline. So I can draw something from top view. I have a tablet, so it's really easy for me. Something like this, and let's just change this to natural, and I hope that this will be good enough for our presentation. And to fully utilize this guy, you have to create some sort of an object, so let's also do this. And I will decrease the width, so let's say maybe, let's go even with 30. This guy can be half, so let's say 200, and just one segment in the width. So you really have to have some sort of nice definition if you want to have proper deformations once we apply this guy to this spline. So let's also create some sort of material, and we will use this, let's go with this yellow color just to break all gray we can see in the viewport. So now this is our initial state. And what is important that I really want to stress out, that whenever you can leave these objects to be parametric, you will have really greater versatility in your setup. So just as with any other deformer, this guy has to be a child of whatever it will deform. So to see it in action, you also have to load a spline to which this object will then wrap. So let's load the spline and explain some settings. And you will see that our guy really deformed in really bad ways. So first thing you want to do is to find the appropriate axis for this guy. So I believe this is Z plus, and yes it is. So our object now is currently stretched on this complete spline, and I don't want that. You have these two modes, and if you feed it to a spline, then it will assume the length of the spline. So this can be an effect you are going for, but not in this case. So we'll change this to keep length. So it will keep the length of my original object. I will also enable this Gerard shading lines. It will be easier a bit to see what's going on. And this settings here, this offset, for example, is really similar to the offset found on Cloner and some effectors. This from and to, you simply define from which point on the spline this object will stretch or compress. So you can clearly see this in action. And currently you can see if I play with this offset a bit. So let's go to the end of this spline. You'll notice that it really extends the object outside the spline. So you can really change that. So let me show you a different behavior by enabling this clamp mode, and it will clamp that object within the spline. So if I hit 100%, the object will reach that endpoint and then scale downwards. Okay, so that's a different behavior. We have lots of other options here, which we will cover soon. And what I really wanted to show you is how this guy works with a cloner. And in that case, if you want to clone this guy and you add cloner now, so let's add a cloner now, and I will show you the problem. It will also clone this Splinewrap guy, so it really won't work. You cannot see those clones. To use this one effectively, have to create a group. So group this all under a null, and then you have to put this deformer outside. But if you drop a cloner here, clone that guy like this and put the deformer, and this works with every single deformer, put the deformer on the same hierarchy level as this cloner guy or any other generator found here. Watch the results. So it really works. This is a really important concept for you to understand, and most of the people are really not aware that this is possible. So let's have fun with some settings here. For example, we could add maybe 10 clones. Okay, so like this, and I will scale this down. In fact, I'm really using the position value, but I'm simply lowering the gap between the clones. And here under Splinewrap, you have additional options to map the deformation of the object assigned to this spline via this slider. So let's load maybe a sine wave spline, and you will see I have a really interesting effect here. So it's like sort of a abstract fish, and I will flip this, and the fish will look in the other direction. I could play with this value here. So you clearly see that I'm mapping these guys according to this point. So their size is being influenced. The same goes for the rotation here. So you can effectively bank anything on the spline and really utilize some crazy effects here. So very, very versatile. The last setting here is really to use an up vector as a helper tool to keep certain spline constellations really to be oriented properly. So now we have really a little abstract fish. So let's have a go with our fish, and that looks really nice. So you could maybe expand this by adding a formula effector just on this portion of the object and effectively have really nice fish. Or you could even create a proper polygon mesh you would deform on this spline. So multiple applications. Let me delete all this, and that's about it as far as the Displacer and the Splinewrap are concerned. And we will talk now about one of my most favorite tools in MoGraph, and that is this MoSpline, and it is absolutely incredible, as you will see. But there are certain parts in the MoSpline, because this is really a huge system, which can be a little bit intimidating, and especially when we will talk about L systems, that can be a little bit scary for folks that are not really technically oriented, but it's really interesting, and I will show you a few examples of this MoSpline. Also, you'll notice that I didn't cover this sound effector, and the reason for it is because I'm going to show you the usage of it in one of the mini projects. So we will now talk about MoSpline, and then we can continue with our mini projects, which are a lot of fun. Let's go to our next lesson.